الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. Brothers and sisters, distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum. A friend asked me a simple but challenging question. Why are we talking about liberty? Isn't that a Western concept, he said? Is IQRA borrowing from Western political culture? Well, it's an important question because it's assumed that liberty comes from outside the Islamic culture. But the Quran tells a very different story. It repeatedly affirms human choice and responsibility. It says in Surah 18, verse 29, let whoever wills believe and whoever wills disbelieve. Not as a political slogan, but as a reflection of our nature. In this sense, liberty is not a foreign import. It is a Quranic reality, rooted in what it means to be human. When people speak about liberty, they often begin with the question, what rights do we have? But the Quran invites us to begin with a deeper question. What kinds of beings are we? Before we speak about liberty, justice, and human dignity, I suggest we begin by asking what distinguishes us from all other living beings. And from this follows another question. Why do we have the needs we have, such as the need to be free? The answer to this question is not abstract. It sets the foundation of how we understand liberty itself, whether it is merely a social agreement or something rooted in the very nature of the human being. The Quran invites us to reflect on this distinction. It speaks of a human being created with purpose, given a trust, formed from the earth, but then elevated by something more. What distinguishes us is not merely our biology, not even intelligence in a computational sense. It is something deeper. It is our consciousness. But what is consciousness? Consciousness is our awareness of ourselves and the world around us. I'll repeat that. Consciousness is our awareness of ourselves and the world around us. It is our ability to reflect, to assign meaning, and to ask, who am I? Why am I here? What is right and what is wrong? These are not biological reflexes. They are existential questions rooted in the very nature with which we have been created, what we call our fitrah. The Quran repeatedly calls us to this awareness, to reflect, يتفكرون, to reason, يعقلون, to discern right from wrong. It is this inner capacity that makes us morally responsible, which is taklif, bearer of trust, amana, and stewards, khulafa on earth. It is from this consciousness that our deepest human needs arise. Not only physical needs, which we share with all living beings, but uniquely human needs. The need for meaning, the need for justice, the need for freedom, and the need for dignity. These are not accidental desires. They are intrinsic to who we are. But here's the question. If consciousness is central to our humanity, how does the Quran explain it? The Quran introduces the concept of ruh, often translated as spirit. But when we examine its usage, we find something profound. Revelation itself, the Quran itself, is described as a ruh. Allah says, and thus we have revealed to you a ruh from our command. This is Surah 42, verse 52. The angel who brings revelation is called Ruh al-Qudus. The Quran says the Ruh al-Qudus has brought it down from your Lord in Surah 16, verse 102. And Ruh is mentioned by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala while creating Adam in his famous conversation with the angel in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 30 to 39, and specifically in Surah Al-Hajr, when Allah says to the angels, and when I have fully formed him and breathe into him of my spirit, fall and prostrate yourself before him. This is Surah 15, verse 29. Allah immediately after that taught Adam the names of everything and asked him to tell the angels what Allah just taught him. So learning the names means he has the ability to be taught, to learn. And telling the angels, meaning he has the ability to communicate ideas, to retain information and to communicate idea. This is consciousness. It is the tradition from a biological organism to a conscious human being and to the first Homo sapien. From this perspective, we can understand consciousness is not just a product of the brain. It is a divine endowment that enables awareness, meaning, and moral understanding. So what do we have so far? The body provides sensation. The brain processes signals. But the ruh, the divine endowment, enables us to understand, to interpret, to know, and be aware. So why does this matter to our topic, liberty? Well, because liberty is meaningless without consciousness. Freedom is not simply the ability to act. Even animals act. True liberty is the ability to choose intentionally, reflect morally, accept or reject an idea, including the truth, take responsibility for one's action. These capacities arise from consciousness. If we were nothing more than biological systems, then justice, responsibility, and dignity would lose their meaning. The divine endowment explained earlier does more than create awareness, it establishes human dignity. If every human being is endowed with this capacity, then every human being possesses an intrinsic worth. That is why the Qur'an declares, we have certainly honored the children of Adam. That's all the children of Adam. That's in Surah 17, verse 70. This dignity is universal. It is not based on race, status, wealth, or belief. It is rooted in being human. From this understanding emerges one of the most powerful Quranic principles. There is no compulsion in religion. This is chapter 2, verse 256. If human beings are conscious and morally responsible, then belief must be a matter of free choice. The Quran enforces this. Let whoever wills believe, and whoever wills disbelieve. Surah 18, verse 29. Faith imposed by force has no meaning. It contradicts the very nature of consciousness. But liberty must be protected. And in the Quran, that protection comes through justice. Without justice, freedom becomes fragile. That is why the Quran commands, stand firmly for justice, even against yourself or your family. This is chapter 4, verse 135. And do not let hatred cause you to deviate from justice. Chapter 5, verse 8. Justice ensures that human beings can exercise their freedom with dignity and responsibility. What emerges here is a deeply coherent vision. Ruh gives rise to consciousness. Consciousness enables moral awareness. Moral agency requires liberty. Liberty must be protected by justice. Justice safeguards human dignity. This is not a set of isolated ideals. It is a unified understanding of human beings. This is who we are. As we turn to our main speaker, I invite you to reflect on this. The Quran vision of liberty does not begin in politics. It begins in human nature. We are created from the earth, endowed with divine knowledge, elevated through consciousness, entrusted with responsibility. It is this understanding that makes the Quran message not only timeless, but urgently relevant today. I hope I have guided you step by step from the question of who we are to the realization that liberty is essential to our very being.